Imagine this. You are a Roman soldier. You're standing on a battlefield, thousands of enemies in front of you. Swords clashing. Arrows filling the sky. The ground shaking with chaos. But you are not afraid of them. Because your real fear is behind you. Your commander steps forward. And without saying a single word, he looks at you. That look alone is worse than any weapon on the battlefield. Because in ancient Rome, the enemy could kill your body. But your commander could erase your entire existence. Your honor. Your name. Your future. Gone. And they called it discipline. The Roman machine of fear. Ancient Rome wasn't just an empire. It was a perfectly engineered war machine. And at the center of that machine was one thing: absolute obedience. Roman soldiers, called legionaries, were trained from day one with a brutal mindset. Disobedience is more dangerous than death. Because death in battle was acceptable. But failure was not. If you disobeyed an enemy, you might survive. But if you disobeyed your commander, there was no escape. One of the most terrifying punishments in Roman history was called decimation. Here's how it worked. If a unit showed cowardice, fear, or disobedience, the commander would line up the entire group. And then, every 10th soldier would be chosen at random. Not the weakest. Not the guilty. Random selection. And those men would be executed in front of their own comrades. Imagine that for a moment. You're not being punished for what you did. You're being punished for simply being unlucky. And after witnessing that, something inside every soldier breaks. Not their body. Their sense of control. Because now, fear doesn't come from the enemy anymore. It comes from your own side. Roman commanders didn't just use punishment. They engineered psychological terror so precise that even hesitation felt like betrayal. And that's where things get even darker. Because fear was only the beginning. Control beyond fear, loyalty as a weapon. Fear alone was not enough to control Rome's armies. Because fear fades. So the Roman commanders built something stronger. Identity control. A Roman soldier didn't just work for Rome. He became Rome. From the moment a legionary joined the army, his entire life was rewritten. New name. New brothers. New family. His old life in a village somewhere in Italy, Gaul, or Hispania? It slowly stopped mattering. Because in the legion, your real family stood next to you in formation. And that created something dangerous. Absolute emotional dependency. If you betrayed the army, you weren't just breaking a rule. You were betraying your brothers. And that made obedience feel personal. But Rome went even deeper. Soldiers were constantly reminded that glory in battle was the only path to meaning. There were no second chances. No retirement dream. No escape into normal life. Only two outcomes existed. Victory or disgrace. And disgrace didn't just mean punishment. It meant being erased from honor. Roman culture was built on something called dignitas, your public worth, your reputation. Lose that. And you were worse than dead. You were nothing. So when a commander gave an order, soldiers didn't just think, should I obey? They thought, if I refuse, what am I becoming? And that question was more powerful than any sword. Because by the time a Roman soldier reached the battlefield, he wasn't just afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing meaning. But there was still something even darker controlling them. Something that turned fear and loyalty into pure survival instinct. Rewards, humiliation, and total control. By this point, Roman commanders had something most armies in history could only dream of. Soldiers who didn't just obey orders. They anticipated them. But this wasn't built on loyalty alone. It was built on a brutal balance system: reward and humiliation. Because in Rome, glory was just as powerful as fear. A soldier who fought bravely could be publicly honored. He could be given land, money, and sometimes even rise in rank. And that possibility of being seen, remembered, praised was addictive. But the opposite was far more common: humiliation. A soldier who ran from battle didn't just face punishment. He faced public shame. And in Roman culture, shame was worse than pain. Cowardly units could be decimated, yes. But even survivors carried something heavier: a reputation that followed them everywhere. They would be mocked by other units, trusted less, watched more closely, slowly erased from respect. And in an army where survival depended on your comrades, losing respect was almost as dangerous as losing life. So every soldier lived inside a pressure system. If you fight well, you might become a legend. If you fail, you become a warning. And that system created something terrifyingly effective: a soldier who feared disappointing Rome more than dying for it. Because at the end of the day, the enemy could kill you once, but Rome could define you forever. And that is why Roman soldiers feared their own commanders more than any battlefield opponent. Not because their commanders were stronger, but because they controlled something far more powerful than weapons: the human mind.